to day 20. Today we're going to dive into our final chapter of Thunder Rolling in the Mountains, and we're going to be looking to see if we can find the essential meaning of our book. Let's get started. So we are still working on the essential question of how do cultural beliefs and values guide people. And our focusing question is what important beliefs and values guide Chief Joseph and his daughter, Sound of Running Feet. Today, our distill question is what is the essential meaning of thunder rolling in the mountains? So as we get to this last chapter of our book, we need to pay close attention to what we're calling an aha moment. And this aha moment, they tend to happen at the end of a story. They're usually moments in which the main character realizes something important and they relate to the story's essential meaning. So today we're going to finish our story in chapter 23 with Sound of Running Feet, and we're really going to be looking for this aha moment. This moment where the conflict is resolved and the essential meaning is kind of displayed to us through the realization of our main character, Sound of Running Feet. So now we're going to listen to chapter 23, and I want you to grab your books and open up to read along with us, and I want you to see if you can notice Sound of Running Feet's aha moment in this chapter. And I also want you to remember those words that helped you find this aha moment. Are you ready? I'm so excited. Here we go.
I ran until I could run no longer. My heart raced and my breath came in great gasps. I bent over and placed my hands on my knees. When my breathing slowed, I started off again. I walked as fast as I could. I walked until the stars faded and the sky grew light. I crossed a frozen stream, stepping carefully so that I did not slip. On the far bank, I knelt and broke through the ice with a stone. The cold water gave me new strength. Again, I began to walk. The sun warmed me. I would walk until I left this land behind. By evening, I would be safe across the border. I had not gone far when clouds covered the sky. It began to snow. Driven by the wind, the flakes stung my face. It was hard to walk. I dropped into a gully and pulled the ermine blanket over me. At last the snow stopped and the sky brightened. When the sun appeared, it had moved the space of my two hands once and then again. It was time to go. Before I could climb out of the gully, I heard sounds. I crawled beneath the blanket and waited. Quietly, I loaded my rifle. Then I lay still, hardly daring to breathe. A single horse galloped past me. I peered from beneath the blanket. On its back was Charging Hawk. His eyes were narrow and his face was grim. If he found me, I would pay dearly for my escape. While the sun moved across the sky, I did not stir. The white blanket blended into the snow. From 3 steps away, a rider could see me. I slept. When I awoke, the shadows were gathering. The sun was low and the first stars shone in the sky. With my hands, I scraped snow from the ground. I ate only a little, enough to stop my thirst. Still, I waited. At last, Charging Hawk returned. His horse gleamed white in the dusk. Charging Hawk was weary from dancing all night and riding all day. His head was on his chest, and he no longer looked for me. He passed the spot where I lay. I reached for my rifle. I peered down the barrel and aimed it with care. When the gun spoke, the bullet would strike him squarely in the back. began to squeeze the trigger. Then my eyes filled with the sight of bodies strewn across the ground. I saw the dead people. I saw my mother. I saw Swan Necklace. I saw Olcott and Fairland. I saw all our dead chiefs, our dead warriors, our dead women, our dead children. I saw the dead blue coats. I saw them as surely as I had seen them at Big Hole and at Bear Paws. My father's voice spoke in my head. I heard him say, "This hatred sickens my heart. All men were made by the same great spirit, yet we shoot one another down like animals." My finger fell from the trigger. The rifle slipped from my hand into the snow. I did not pick it up. Sometime the killing had to stop. I had no hate left. I watched Charging Hawk ride out of sight. It was over. I got to my feet and walked toward the old lady's country.
Now that we finished that chapter, I want you to think about this. Which words helped you to identify Sound of Running Feet's aha moment in that chapter? The moment she realizes something important. So one of those moments could be on pages 125 to 126 when the text says, "Slowly I began to pull the trigger. Then my eyes filled with the sight of bodies strewn across the ground." This moment, it kind of triggers something inside of herself when she's aiming that gun at Charging Hawk. Another set of words that could help you to identify this aha moment could also be on page 126 when the text says, "My father's voice spoke in my head." She was hearing Chief Joseph talk about how much he hates all of this fighting and how it makes him sick, and he just really doesn't like it. And all of this is coming back to her as she's aiming this gun. So these words are really important. I want you to think about those. Open up handout 25A. It may be on Schoology where your teacher posted. And we are going to be working on determining the theme or essential meaning of Thunder Rolling in the Mountains using this aha moment Sound of Running Feet had in this last chapter. So go open up that assignment and I'll meet you there. So now we're going to be working on handout 25A. We're going to be reflecting on the realization that Sound of Running Feet has at the end of Thunder Rolling in the Mountains. You're going to be using pages 125 and 126 to help you answer these questions. The first thing I want you to do is what we just talked about on the last slide, is how do we know this was an aha moment for Sound of Running Feet? We want to write down the words in the text to help us identify this moment when she's realizing something important. So this could include those things from page 125, 126 that we just talked about, where she says, "Slowly I began to pull the trigger." Then my eyes filled with the sight of bodies strewn across the ground. And we can put right here 25 to 126, because that's where we got our evidence from. And here you could also say, "My father's voice spoke in my head." And we'll put some dots. Let's know there's more words there, but this could be page 126. Alright, now what I want you to think about is this first box here. I want you to briefly describe what is happening in this moment of the story as Sound of Running Feet begins to pull the trigger. What realization does Sound of Running Feet have in this moment? I want you to pause the video while you work on this question and come back when you're ready. All right, let's do question 2. Why do you think this is such an important moment in the story for Sound of Running Feet? How does this moment represent a change in her thinking? So how is her thinking changing from the start of our novel to the end? How does this moment show that change in her thinking? Pause the video, go work on that, and come back when you're ready. And question 3. How is this moment important to the story overall? And how do you think it relates to the story's essential meaning? So this question is really asking us, how does this moment go beyond just what's happening here? How does this go stretch out into the world in general? So pause the video and come back when you're ready. Welcome back. Let's go over what we kind of wrote down and discuss how this relates to an essential meaning for our book and kind of get an idea of why this moment was such an important moment for Sound of Running Feet. So let's go back to our first question here. So in this scene, Sound of Running Feet is having a big aha moment, that we're calling it, of realization. She's understanding something that she didn't understand before. So in this moment, she is picturing everyone she has known who has died in the violence of the past few months on this journey that they've been going on, right? She pictures her mom. She's picturing Swan Necklace, all of the chiefs, the warriors, the women, the children, even the soldiers. She's remembering all of them. And she also hears her father's voice, the one who she was disagreeing with this whole novel. And she's hearing his voice and his words. This all makes her realize that she has no hate left inside of her. She doesn't want to kill Charging Hawk. She's just realizing she wants the killing to stop. And that's a major shift for her, because the beginning of the book, she was all for standing up and fighting and let's kill everybody and let's go and I'll die for my land. And now at the end, she realizes she just wants the killing to end. She doesn't want to do it anymore. It's not worth it after losing all of these people she's loved and cared about. So she comes to that realization. Now let's look at question 2. So why is this such a big moment in the story for Sound of Running Feet? How does this really show that change in her thinking? So you could say lots of different things, but this moment is so important because she's always wanted to fight. For her land, her people, and herself. She now realizes, that the killing has to stop. And she can make the choice to be the one to stop it. So her remembering all that violence and all this death and hearing her dad really makes her realize that the violence has to end at some point, and she's the one who chooses to end it. That's such a big thing for her. That's a major character change in her, that she wants the violence to be done. She just wants peace. She's finally aligning herself with the way her father thinks and understands Chief Joseph's point of view, that there's no point in violence. It just brings all this sadness and grief, right? Okay. Now let's look at question 3. This is kind of tough because you want to think beyond just our story. So we're going to start with looking at our story, And then we're going to take that outside our story and come up with an essential meaning that can apply to all of us. So, how is this moment important in the story overall? So, this moment, releasing the trigger and dropping the rifle, signifies an end to the cycle of violence and hatred between groups of people in this story. The sound of running feet ends this cycle by choosing not to kill Charging Hawk. So that's why it's so important in our book. It ends all of this violence and hatred in our book between all of these warring groups of people. It's a big major end because the whole book has been focused on this hatred and all of this discord between the two groups and multiple groups by the end of it. And her doing this, she's choosing to stop the killing and stop the violence and just let it go and move on from it. She's choosing peace instead of violence, which is a huge thing. Now, when you want to take this as an essential meaning for our book, something we could learn from the book, what this shows, think about how she is ending a cycle of violence. So this is the essential meaning. This moment relates to the story's essential meaning because it shows that a cycle of violence can end. And a single individual has the power to choose peace over violence. So Sound of Running Feet finally chooses peace in this moment, and we learn that anybody has the power to choose that peace over being violent. So she's kind of representing that for all of us. So now that we've done that, I want you to kind of think about what good readers do at the end of a novel. We know what happens, we have the resolution, we know the whole plot, we know the characters, but good readers, when they finish a book, pause and reflect back on the characters and what happened in the story, the events. And they really want to think about what the story is about and why it matters. Why did we just spend all of these weeks reading this book? We wouldn't have just read it to read it. You can sometimes, but there's a meaning behind it, and it's an important book. So we want to think about that. What is this? Are the authors trying to get us to learn from this book? And why are our teachers making us read it? What is so important about it? Why does it matter? So I want you to open up your InSync journal for today. And there are some questions there that I want you to work on to really reflect about these characters and the events of the story and really dig deep and see if you can come up with what you think a huge essential meaning overall for our book is. Pause the video and work on that and come back here when you're ready.
Okay, boys and girls, you have one more assignment for today. This is the Day 20 Check for Understanding Schoology Assessment. So what you're going to do is click on the assignment and click Start New Attempt. And you're going to answer these 3 questions right here in this box in complete sentences. You can number them 1, 2, and 3. You can just put spaces in between each question, whatever works for you. But what is one valuable lesson or idea you learned from Thunder Rolling in the Mountains? 2, explain why this lesson or idea is valuable today, and then explain how you can apply this lesson to your own lives. Okay, and when you are done with that, you can press submit and you are done for today. See you next time.